Hello everyone and welcome back. This week we will continue studying and reviewing English consonant sounds. We started by looking at what consonant sounds are by definition, talking about what is involved in the articulation or production of these consonant sounds. We talked about voicing and how consonants are defined, first of all, in terms of whether they're voiced or voiceless. Then we talked about place of articulation, which is the exact place at which consonant sounds are produced. And finally, last week, we talked about manner of articulation, which has to do with how the airflow is maneuvered around and expelled in the production of each individual consonant sound. This week we will continue with exercises to practice those consonant sounds, and we will add a component which is suprasegmental processes that are involved in consonant sounds when they occur in specific contexts. But before we start with today's class, with this week's class, I would like for you to look at the fact that I have uploaded a series of documents, PDF documents, that you will have to rely on for this week's session. The first document that I want you to pull up is the one entitled Updated Schedule. Okay, I'm going to give you a second to upload that document so that you can look at it with me. Ready? Very good. You will see that in red, I have highlighted the changes. First, on the first column, we have the week number and the date. On the second column, the original activities and assignments proposed. And on the last column, the updated activities and assignments. For this week, we were supposed to have the first quiz, which was on describing and identifying consonant sounds. Yet, this activity has been postponed. And instead, this week, we're going to be reviewing not only place and manner of articulation, but also voicing a little bit. We're also going to continue with practicing consonant sounds and looking at things such as the consonant chart, and also looking at what I just said, phonological processes that apply to English consonant sounds in various contexts. Next week, as you know, is Easter break. So you have a break. You're welcome to rest or prepare for the quiz, which will be the following week. On the 13th of April, we have additional practice with consonant sounds, mostly reading multiple examples of words, especially with challenging sounds for Spanish speakers, as well as larger texts. Watching some videos posted by other people on challenging English consonant sounds, and we will have the first quiz. And on April 20th, which was supposed to be Semana U, which I'm sure we no longer will have, we will have a regular session, and that way you will have to hand in the first at-home reading assignment, as well as taking the first test, the midterm exam, which will cover everything that we have talked so far about consonant sounds. Okay, make sure that you have that updated schedule handy so you know what's going to happen for the next few weeks. Okay, the next document which I now want you to pull up is the document entitled Places of Articulation Picture. And in that picture, this is an assignment that I gave you last week. I'm going to give you a second to pull it up. Okay, ready? You have it? Okay. This was the exercise on page 36 of your anthology, and it has a picture of the vocal tract. You were instructed to write down the names of all 8 places of articulation that are used to describe where each individual consonant sound is produced. In this picture, you see that I have not only provided the places of articulation in a logical order from front to back of the oral tract, but I've also provided a very short definition of each place of articulation, as well as the list of all consonants that are produced at each place. The first place of articulation that we talked about was bilabial sounds. Remember that bilabial sounds, by definition, are sounds involving both the lower and the upper lip, and we have 4 bilabial sounds: p, b, m, and w. Next, we have labiodental sounds, which are sounds in which the lower lip approaches and touches the upper teeth, and we have 2 sounds, f and v. Next, we have interdental sounds. Interdental sounds are the sounds in which the tongue tip protrudes between the upper and the lower teeth, and we have 2, th and v. And remember that these sounds are sounds which represent normally words that are spelled th. except for one exception that we already talked about. The next set of sounds are alveolar sounds. Alveolar sounds are sounds in which the tip or the blade of the tongue touches the alveolar ridge, which is the area immediately behind the upper teeth, and we have the majority of consonant sounds produced at that place of articulation, namely t, d, n, o, s, z, and r, which is an allophone. In other words, a variation of either t and d when they occur in a specific context. Next, we have post-alveolar sounds. Post-alveolar sounds are sounds which produce immediately behind the alveolar ridge at the hard palate. And we have sh, r, ch, j, and r. Next, we have the palatal sound, because there's only one palatal sound in English. In this sound, the center of the tongue touches or approaches the hard palate, the middle of the oral tract, or the roof of the mouth. And we have the y, as in yes. Next, we have velar sounds. Velar sounds are sounds in which the back of the tongue reaches against the velum, okay? And we have three velar sounds, k, g, and m. And finally, we have glottal sounds. Glottal sounds are sounds in which the root of the tongue touches or approaches the glottis, and we have two sounds, h and m. Okay, make sure that you check to see if this exercise is correct, and if it's not correct, make sure that you make all necessary corrections. Make sure that the symbols are represented corrected. I want to point out a couple of things that I have seen when some of you have sent me some of these exercises to check. For example, capital letters are never phonological symbols, okay? They're always lowercase. Also, the has to be the one that I taught you. It's not a regular R, because that sound is the trill and it's a r, okay? The one that we use in English is an upside down R, okay? Also remember that the glottal stop is like a question mark, but instead of having a period underneath, it has a line. It's like a capital question mark. And the same for the tab. The tab looks like an upside down capital J letter. Okay. Next, we are going to look at the consonant chart, which was an activity posted on page 37 of your anthology, in which you were also asked to work on as kind of homework last week. Okay. Here, you were supposed to write down all 26 consonant sounds in English according to the correct description. For example, we have stop sounds. Stop sounds might be bilabial, alveolar, velar, or glottal. Remember that stop sounds are sounds in which the airflow is completely blocked and then released momentarily. Okay, the first set of stop sounds are bilabial sounds. First, we have the voiceless bilabial stop, p. Then the voiced bilabial stop, b. Next, we have the voiceless alveolar stop, t, t. Then the voiced alveolar stop, d, d. Next, we have the velar voiceless stop, k, k. And then the voiced velar stop, g, g, g. And finally, we have the voiced glottal stop, which is an allophone of either t or d. Next, we have fricative sounds. Fricative sounds, remember, are sounds in which the two articulators do not obstruct the airflow completely like they do in stop sounds. Instead, these two articulators approach each other and close enough that they narrow the air passage, making the airflow turbulent. And as a result, we have longer sounds. First, we have labiodental fricative sounds. First, the voiceless labiodental fricative f, and then the voiced labiodental fricative v. Next, we have the interdental fricatives. First, the voiceless interdental fricative th, and then the voiced interdental fricative v. Next, we have the alveolar fricatives. The voiceless alveolar fricative s, and the voiced alveolar fricative z. Sorry. Next, we have post-alveolar fricatives sh and zh. Sh is voiceless, whereas zh is voiced. And finally, we have the glottal fricative, which is voiceless, and it is h. Next, we have affricate sounds. Affricate sounds are sounds which by definition involve a stop immediately followed by a fricative. Then we have two which are post-alveolar. First, the voiceless post-alveolar affricate. And notice the pronunciation of this word, affricate, affricate. The first is ch, ch. And then we have the voiced post-alveolar affricate, j, j. Next, we have nasal sounds. Remember that nasal sounds are sounds in which the air is expelled out the nasal cavity, not the oral cavity. And we have first the bilabial nasal voiced sound, All nasal sounds are voiced. Then we have the voiced alveolar nasal, and finally the velar voiced nasal, Next, we have the approximants. Remember that approximants are sounds which resemble more vowels or sounds in which the airflow is a little bit different from fricative stops and affricates. It's just special, let's say. Okay, the first ones are also referred to as semivowels because they resemble more vowels in that the obstruction of air is almost not there. Vowels, by definition, do not involve obstruction of the airflow. The first one is the bilabial voiced semivowel w, which involves lip rounding. And then the second one is the voiced palatal semivowel y, y. Next, we have the central approximant, which is voiced and is post-alveolar, and it is the sound r. It's a central approximant because the airflow is being expelled out the center of the tongue. And then we have the lateral approximant. The lateral approximant is it is alveolar, it is voiced, and the air is expelled out the sides of the tongue. And finally, we have the tap, which is alveolar and is voiced. And this sound, remember that it is a variation of either to or do when they occur in specific contexts. In other words, it's an allophone. Okay. Next, we actually have an exercise on voiced and voiceless TH sounds. Okay. What you need to do here is you need to, I want you to pull up this PDF file, which is entitled Voiceless Voice TH Words. And I want you to practice these on your own. First, we have examples with the voiceless interdental fricative occurring at the beginning of a word, in the middle of a word, and at the end. And next, we have a table with voiced interdental fricatives, th, occurring also at the beginning, in the middle, and at the end. Okay? I want you to take a few minutes to practice saying these words. Just like with all previous exercises, you're welcome to record yourself and then send me your recording, and I'll be happy to give you feedback. I will record myself reading these words for you as modeling on my next video. See you soon.